Hello everyone and welcome to the second part of my Lua tutorial series. Today we are dealing with all the different types of variables you can use because there is a difference between them. If we just look into all the functions which exist, you can recognize that, for example, let's use the misc, where was it? Misc. Let's use this for example. That for all functions we have information about the inputs and the outputs. Most functions use an input, process this input, and give you an output. Now, this is the idea of a function. It has a purpose, and it processes information. But all those informations in here are all get. All functions in here are get functions. And they just provide information, so this is why they don't have any input. NA means something like nothing, I don't know. It just basically means it doesn't require any input. And it only has an output. And here comes the interesting part, because it says float in those brackets right here, and float here, and float here. And here it says vector 3. And now, of course, you wonder what that stands for, and if it is important, and of course it is important, otherwise I wouldn't mention it. Float and vector 3, just as examples, are types of variables. So variables, which are basically just locations where you can store data, right? In the previous tutorial I used just a random name, this variable. This is a variable to transport the hello string, the information hello, to the log function, right? I put hello inside this variable, and then I printed this variable into the shed. And yeah, variables carry information around and also store information. And there are different types of this variable. So float and vector 3, and there's even more. This is called Boolean. It can be true or wrong. This is a float. A float is a very detailed number, so with a lot of stuff after the comma. And C is a list. So a list of different values. And there's even one more very important type of variable. It's called the integer. And the integer has only natural numbers. So like 1 or 2 or 3 or 723. I don't know. But nothing like this, right? Nothing after the comma. I can actually write this here. This is spelled Boolean. And this is a float, and this is a list, and this is a integer. And there's one more. Let's use hello again. This is a string. Okay, so there you have all of the most important variable types. And yeah, you always have to be aware of what type you're currently using. For example, if we want to print the Boolean, yeah, which can be true or false. Right now, A, which is the variable, is true. So the information true is saved in A. We actually don't know what is true or what is wrong, but that doesn't matter, right? For example, I could I am male. I could use this as a variable, and now the true makes more sense, right? Because the variable has some meaningful name, yeah, I could now print that, for example, in the log function. I double point log, and then, or maybe am I male? am I male? Am I male? And now I could print that. And it doesn't work because am I male equals to, oh, it's a Boolean and not a string. Yeah, first mistake. This is what I actually wanted to explain you. This is a Boolean, right? And the log function, if you look it up, has as an input a string. Because a string is actually a format of different symbols, like text. All text is considered as a string and not as a Boolean. So the log function can only deal with strings. And this is why you have to use toString. That's also a function, right? toString. And toString has as an input any type of variable, and it outputs always a string. So what happens if I put am I male in there? It converts true to an actual string. toString, I did that wrong this time. Maybe stop running, apply changes. No, doesn't work. What did I wrong? What did I do wrong, I mean? Let me check. Comma. Can't recognize it. Interesting. Maybe you can see what I did wrong. Oh, of course. I did comment it out. Yeah. As I told you in the previous tutorial, if you put minus in front, it won't recognize this line and just ignore it. So there we go. And now this function can actually print it because I converted the Boolean into a string. If I remove this again, it will stop working. If I put it back, it will work again. And recognize that it didn't give me any error. So this might be an issue of the program, or I did forget to clear the log. No, it doesn't tell you that something goes wrong in the log. So yeah, the game makes debugging at this point very difficult. But yeah, the log function can only use a string as the input. So now I could, of course, put anything else here. I could put the b in here, and then we would print the float. And it is just considered as 0. Interesting. What happens if I put a 4 in there? So it isn't actually able to print all of this stuff. Maybe it's too long. Yeah, I guess it just can't print any floats. Which is sad. But it at least prints the first digit. We could also try to print C, which is a list. And that's a very interesting format. Actually, I'm not able to read this or understand it. Yeah, but this happens if you want to print a list. Of course, we can print an integer. This is very easy. So let's print D. We just get the 1. And of course, we can print a string. And strings are always marked by those symbols, or as an alternative, this symbol. Both work, and both have the identical meaning. This doesn't apply to all program languages. For example, in Python it's different, if I remember correctly. But in Lua they have equal meaning. So now I can also print the hello. There we go. Yeah, and there are more advanced types of variables. Right now I just remembered one, but this is a very early state of my tutorial, so we don't care. But just keep in mind there are more. For example, there's the vector3 type, and if you're familiar with mathematics, which you might not be, which definitely will this make more difficult, but you can work around that, I'm pretty sure. Vectors are directions in 3-dimensional space. So it just means go 1 meter forward, 0 meters to the right, and 0 meters up. So this would be just move 1 meter forward, right? At least in from the depth. The vector means 1 meter means 1 block. So 1 block forward, 0 blocks to the right, and 0 blocks up. This is just the direction, right? A vector is vector 3, and then forward, right, and up. This is how vector is written down. You might actually see this somewhere in syntax or something. Basics, I don't know. Maybe somewhere it tells you how this vector is organized. But yeah, this is a vector. And we also saw that in MISC right here. This outputs the vector 3. It's the get wind direction and magnitude. This would just give you the direction the wind comes from. And of course this is a vector, because vector describes direction. And the length of this vector describes the magnitude, so how strong the wind is. Yeah. So much about different types of variables, and again, always make sure you're using the correct type of variable. In our cases, this will be most times floats and lists and integers and Booleans, so just the setup here. Just learn them, right? It's not that hard, and they also make kind of sense to me. Or they're named, but yeah. Just try to remember that, and I will also mark this box as important for you. Well, let's just agree on a stick of glass marked, what's the strong color? Marked red. Or to stay positive, let's mark it green. So from now on, Lua boxes marked this way are important, right? And I also include a little note for you. Remember to use correct types of variables. And there you go. Apply changes to save. And we'll see us in the next tutorial. Bye, and thanks for watching.